Hey guys, I just want to do a quick video today on the Trevor Jacob situation. A couple of you guys might have heard about this a couple weeks ago. The video was released late in December of 2021 by YouTuber Trevor Jacob, who I have never heard of before until this incident, and I came across the video purely by coincidence. I don't watch his videos, I don't subscribe to him or anything like that. But what caught my attention with this video is obviously the clickbait title. Anytime a plane is crashed, it's obviously a big deal. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on me as a pilot, I do have a private pilot certificate. I completed all my training there. I'm currently pursuing my instrument rating and eventually other things like acrobatic rating, tail wheel endorsement, stuff like that. Needless to say, I'm not necessarily an authority on the subject, but I do have quite a bit of training and experience. I'm still technically a low-time pilot, but just want to give my 2 cents on the situation. So right off the bat with this video, what rubs me the wrong way is the fact that Trevor Jacob here is going through his little spiel about taking out this Taylor craft, which apparently is a recent purchase for him. I went and checked out his YouTube channel, and he really doesn't fly this plane at all. This is the first time I guess we're seeing it on his channel. It talks about here, you just saw there, he had a bag of what is supposedly the ashes of his friend that he wants to spread, and actually the entire reason for him going on this trip over the mountains. He's going to spread his friend's ashes at one of his favorite places to paraglide. Another thing that rubs me the wrong way right off the bat is that he transitions from this weird thing talking about his spreading his friend's ashes, rest in peace, my buddy, and stuff like that, and then bam, right into a Ridge Wallet commercial, which I think is kind of crazy. That doesn't necessarily say anything about whether or not this guy intentionally crashed his plane or speaking to his flying ability or anything like that. It just seems kind of odd to me, and it's not something I would ever personally do. So with that, he goes through this little spiel here, and then it cuts to him taking off, heading over the mountains here. Took off from an airport in California. He's headed over the mountains. Everything looks normal up to this point, except for maybe perhaps this tiny little gap in the door here. This just could be the fact that this airplane, which is a 1940s Taylorcraft BL-65, which is a really lightweight, low horsepower tail dragger, good for bush flying, stuff like that. Perfectly serviceable airplane. I'd be happy to own one, which is part of the reason why this rubs me the wrong way again, is that I don't know any pilot worth their salt who would really just crash a plane unnecessarily. However, we're dealing with a YouTuber here who has probably millions of subscribers and is probably looking for more of them. So, I mean, who knows? So at about 2 minutes into the video here, you see that he has an engine out right there. You saw the little dip there. And the first thing you'll notice is that despite the propeller continuing to spin, the engine is indeed off. And what's weird is that he is, instead of doing what I would do in this situation, he's trying to keep the plane straight and level in an effort to slow the plane down and stop the propeller from windmilling. And for those of you who don't know, in a low compression engine like is on this Taylorcraft here, which I believe is a Continental engine, it's a low compression engine, meaning it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to rotate the propeller, which by extension means that at whatever speed he's going here, it was obviously already too fast to stop the propeller from windmilling, which is maybe why I don't want to say this with authority, because I don't know what's going on inside his head or whether or not this was actually an emergency situation. But it looks like he was trying to intentionally slow down the prop in order to stop it from windmilling, to further solidify the fact that he had an engine out, apparently. What tells me that this isn't an engine out is that he's got a full fuel, as indicated here on this little dipstick. It's kind of hard to see, but on a Taylorcraft, if you have a full tank, this rod is going to be all the way up, and if not, it's going to be down the bottom. It's a manual fuel indicator, so it's not like anything you can see inside the cockpit. Another thing rubs me the wrong way about this is that you can already see, like, as he is trying to get this propeller to stop windmilling. He successfully does that and then immediately opens his door and starts looking down towards the ground. Now, this is completely contrary to anything any pilot anywhere has been taught to do. And he mentions earlier in the video, like at the beginning of it, where he always wears a parachute when he goes flying. I've never heard anyone say that personally. I wouldn't wear a parachute when I go flying, unless I'm jumping out of an airplane that someone else is piloting and under the correct circumstances. And even if he did have to ditch the plane, this is the wrong parachute to do it with from my research. This looks like it's a sport rig. It's much larger than an emergency parachute. And that'll come into play later too with a couple of the other gripes I have about how he handled this situation. But with that, we'll keep running the video here. I believe he waffles around here. He starts cursing and saying, "Oh fuck, oh shit, oh my god," stuff like that. Not stuff I would probably do right away. And this might be a good part of the video here to stop and just talk about what you should do in this situation according to the training that I've received. So when you experience an engine out, most pilots are taught within the first 10 hours of flight time at a flight school that you have to run. There's a certain set of procedures you run. It's maybe slightly different for each aircraft, but the three general points that you're looking for is you want to aviate, as in fly the airplane, navigate. 2 is like pointing the plane in a direction that's going to be safe or where you want to go. And then 3rd, which is last on the list for a reason, is communicate. He skipped all 3 and just jumped out of the airplane, as you'll see here shortly. And that's completely contrary to anything I've been taught or any of my other pilot buddies have been taught. And it's just something that it seems so odd to me that you would jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Even if, say, like the engine had a legitimate mechanical failure. If the plane had a legitimate mechanical failure, this plane is still more or less a glider. And from what I've been able to read online about Taylor crafts, they have a very excellent glide ratio, and they can land in a matter of 100, 200, 300 feet. Like, it doesn't take much space. You could land one of these airplanes in a football field, provided there was no walls. But under the navigation of a skilled pilot, it shouldn't have been too much of an issue to turn around and head back to where he was coming from, especially given this altitude, which I've seen a couple other people put out videos on this particular incident. And apparently his altitude is estimated at somewhere between 9,000 and 11,000 feet, which is extremely high for a bush plane like this Taylor craft here. Going back to the engine, what tells me that this isn't necessarily a mechanical or a catastrophic mechanical problem with the engine is that it did windmill, and you'll see it later in the video that after he exits the plane and the plane starts to take a dive due to supposedly what I can only imagine is purposeful downward trim, which is a setting you can use to ease your control inputs. It makes it easier for you to navigate the plane while it's trying to pull up constantly. So you're basically trimming down your rear elevator to make it easier for you to work the controls. But it looks like, to me, he trims down, and that's probably what causes the plane to take such a sharp dive here in a second. You'll see he's looking about ditching, he's goofing around, just trying to keep the plane. I mean, he could be just trying to keep the plane slow so that he can jump out more safely. It could be that, but it might be both. Who knows? So here he ditches, and the funny part here for most of you guys watching is going to be, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's a pretty epic looking thing there. But right here, convenient selfie stick with the GoPro to catch the sweet, Mission Impossible James Bond skydiving scene. You guys can see here he's got his headset beating him over the head, which is not a headset that I've seen him wear in his previous videos. And you can see here he's also continuing his dive with that sport parachute. And as the plane continues to dive here, you can also see where he is, I guess, trying to get a good look at the plane. And you can already see it starting to windmill. And what's really sad here is that the plane planes are designed in such a way that they're meant to be aerodynamically stable. And you can see here with no human input, the plane is actually flying itself pretty well. And I don't know exactly how he got this footage right here. I don't know if he took out his cell phone camera and started filming it as he was in an emergency situation or if someone else filmed it, but you could just see here the plane is trying to fly itself. And right here, we'll go back just a hair here. Right here, as the plane is going down, you can see there's multiple areas where he could have landed this plane. And it's almost like the plane is like screaming to the world that, hey, I wanted to land and not crash into the side of the hill, as you'll see later here. All these wash areas where a river or a stream has gone through would be perfect. Like this spot here in particular, I think would be a perfectly suitable landing spot. And if you were able, even if you weren't able to get the engine restarted, there's always the possibility, since it doesn't look like a catastrophic engine failure, you could restart the engine on the ground here, fuel it back up, and fly right on back out of here at a much safer altitude next time. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. The plane continues to descend since it's not under engine power or at idle if it restarted itself. I don't know if he switched off his mags or anything like that, or caged his fuel, or if you can even do that in a Taylor craft. But unfortunately, plane crashes here. I'll let you guys watch that. Ooh. Big oof. Big oof. Yeah, it's kind of amazing though that his GoPros managed to survive. And those of you who are forward thinking are going to know that he picked up all that footage, obviously, which is another crazy thing considering, this guy's out in the middle of the mountains and he just landed in a bunch of bushes. He makes a big fuss here about how, he's got scratches and cuts and stuff like that. And this is also curious because given the fact that he's wearing a sport parachute, like one that is easily navigated, there's a huge area down here on the ground where he could have landed. And I'll show you here in a minute when we get past this crash sequence. As he's falling from the sky, like anyone who's been parachuting knows that you can easily navigate these things. And he's an experienced paraglider from what I could tell and a skydiver. So this area right here is just, why even land in the side of the hill or on the mountain? Like that just completely blows my mind. Like why he would sidestep a safe landing area in favor of landing in the bushes, unless it was for the purpose of making it more dramatic, which would explain the cursing, which would explain the ashes and all this other stuff. The whole thing just feels off to me because it's overly dramatic. There's a lot of swearing, and I don't know any pilot who is trained properly who would panic like this in this situation. The rest of the video goes on. He lands, goes back to the airplane, does some like Survivor Man tier shit where he like drinks out of a pond or something like that to give himself some water. Eventually some farmers or someone picks him up later that night and the end of the video terminates with him paragliding over the mountains to spread his buddy's ashes and stuff like that. So what is the problem here and why is this such a big deal to pilots? Well, first of all, there was just too many red flags in the video for anyone to ignore it. Like any pilot who watches this, with any level of certification, I would hope at least would be extremely suspect about the circumstances of the engine out. And there's just a lot of procedural stuff that you're taught and is drilled into your head as a pilot that he skips. So first of all, let's say my engine were to go out. What would be the first thing I would do? Well, first thing is every plane has what's called a best glide speed. And that is going to give you the furthest distance traveled and most loiter time for an engine out situation. So the plane I fly most frequently is a Diamond DA-20 C1 Eclipse. So it's a single engine monocoque airplane with a low wing design. And the wings on that plane are so huge that it gives me an 11-to-1 glide ratio. So what that means is that for every 11,000 feet of forward motion, I lose 1,000 feet of altitude. There's been a couple other videos I've seen so far on this subject that have proven that given the right wind circumstances, or maybe even a calm day, that in this particular airplane, he should have been able to get back to at least one airport if he was keeping track of that at all. Beyond that, there was already several locations that most of you probably could have spotted where he could have landed a plane like this. So not establishing a best glide speed, which would be a slight pitch down to maintain the correct speed for whatever his plane glides best at, is already a huge red flag. The second thing, he doesn't make any radio calls. I don't know if the plane had a transponder on it or an ADSB out or anything like that, but it should be equipped with a radio. And if you're in trouble and you know you're going to go down at a bunch of mountains and there's no civilization around it, you probably should call somebody on the radio. ATC would have been more than happy to accommodate that request. And even if he did have to ditch, then I think, at least he wouldn't be stranded out there. He wouldn't be doing this Survivor Man stuff where he's walking around and drinking out of ponds and, right here, washing his face off and getting picked up by random farmers. It's just, the whole situation's strange. And I'm going to say that again probably 10 more times because it just blows my mind and really upsets me for more reasons we'll get into here in a minute. So beyond that, he didn't make no radio calls. He didn't run any engine out procedures. He didn't even try to restart the engine. And if your propeller's windmilling, and there's nothing else wrong with it, even if say your magnetos got switched off or something like that, there's running a procedure, an engine out procedure checklist would resolve that problem unless there was something legitimately wrong with the airplane. That being said, even if there was something legitimately wrong with the engine and you could not restart it, I still think that not sending a 1,000-pound missile into the mountains where it could possibly hit someone or something living or of value is probably a smarter idea than just ghost riding. Or it's not a smart idea. You'd be ghost riding the plane into the unknown, and you can't predict where it's going to land. And as a final note, a big red flag here. I'll scroll this back a little bit. In the beginning part of the video, you can see that he has a GoPro set up here and obviously one set up in front of his face. Where's the footage for this GoPro? It looks like it's on here. I can't really read the LCD, and I don't know if this version of the GoPro has an LED recording indicator, but where's that footage? Trevor Jacob didn't upload any of that footage. And he also didn't describe any of the circumstances around the engine out. He didn't explain, what his assumption was. He just says, oh, well, my engine went out. Time to ditch my plane. And what's kind of dumb about that is that in the very beginning of the video, he says something about wanting to share this to spread awareness or, so that other people can learn from his mistakes or whatever. And if that was really his goal here, first of all, he probably would have forgone the part about his friend's ashes. Look at that right there. There was no safe place to land. Big X to doubt on that one, buddy. But yeah, why would you include the thing about your friend, and why would you put a Ridge Wallet thing in there if the main focus of your video is to help other people learn from your experience? Why not share with us the details that led to your engine out and why you had to ditch the plane? So I kind of want to wrap this up here because I think I'm rambling at this point. But as of today, the video has about 500,000 views, a little over 500,000 views. So not exactly viral, but it's pretty popular in the aviation community for the reasons I mentioned before, because it upset a lot of people and rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. When I first saw the video back in December, there was tons of comments just flooding it about people, just poking the guy in the ribs about the situation, about him ditching the plane. Since then, the comments have been disabled for the video, but the video is still up. So according to AV Web, which is a blog that I follow about aviation news, the NTSB is indeed conducting an investigation. However, knowing the NTSB, we probably won't hear any conclusive evidence about what they're going to do in this situation for about a year, because the NTSB is a government organization and they generally work pretty slow. So what does this mean for the general aviation community? Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to lead to anything good. Normally, the FAA is a slow-moving giant that doesn't like to introduce new laws and new regulations unless somebody has died. However, given that this is such a big and high-profile happening, it wouldn't surprise me if the FAA comes back with some sort of addition to the FARs or the regs that are going to negatively affect general aviation pilots. The only thing I can say right off the bat that he might get pinned with is the regulation regarding dropping objects from an airplane. I don't know if that includes the airplane itself, but he basically did is just ghost rode a plane into the mountains for clicks. At least that's my feeling. So it's not all surprising that people are upset about it. I know I'm upset about it. I probably shouldn't be, or maybe I should be, I don't know. But all I know is that this guy just threw away a perfectly good airplane, in my opinion. One that I would probably be more than happy to own. And if I was him, if I was an airplane owner, if I owned my own plane, I would do everything in my power to save that plane short of, injuring someone else. And it seems to me like he did throughout both of those considerations and just tried to make the most clickbaity video possible. So if you guys have questions about this video or any of my other thoughts on any of the other parts of the video, if you've seen it, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you next time.